that's huge. And then whoever the number 1 seed is will have that home host advantage in the finals of the playoffs, and that will be absolutely huge. So even just making the playoffs, that's huge alone just to get there, because at least it gives yourself a chance to make something happen. But getting those top 2 seeds could be huge, especially if these EU teams that are currently at number 1 and 2 pull that off. This is huge for them, and it'll make the tournament, the playoffs, really interesting going forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And now let's get a little bit of an insight on the players playing for these teams. And we're going to start with GodJumps, who has the players of Joshin2k and Karem. So can you give me a little bit of info about what you know about these players? I know you may not have been around the scene as much, being able to study other players, but as a competitor, you have played these people. Can you give me a little bit of insight what it's like to know about these people from the competitor side?
Yeah, Joshin and Karem, they're just they're really professional. Like they grind the game. They're not like sitting here, like some of us, and even me included, are like, oh, this game's whatever, this game's like that. And they're like, no, you know what, maybe it is whatever, but I'm not going to react to it. I'm just going to play through it, and I'm just going to be better than it, and I'm going to learn how to deal with it and beat it and be better than everybody else. And so I've heard Jashin say that, and I mean, I saw Jashin today and yesterday playing a lot of the low grav hexes and being like, I love this mode. Like, I've learned the strats and everything, and I'm kind of watching him, kind of learning a little bit here and there, but I'm like, the mentality is just unreal. And Jashin in his tournament win yesterday was literally saying, oh, these players are doing this or whatever, I'm going to be the best, and I'm coming here to win tournaments and all that. So he just feels really confident, and it definitely goes to show, when I played him, when Slightly Salty, when Smock and I played him, we literally had a close game, but they were just so good that, I mean, we were on point, and even then, that it came down to that very last game. And honestly, I don't remember if they won the crown or whatever, but ultimately we just didn't do enough to make it happen. And they're just unbelievable competitors. And they're some people you do not want to face. Again, this is EU servers, but if it was an EU versus US, that it makes it even rougher for everyone else.
Yeah, and something big to note about is Karem. Like, he's not here to get followers. Joshin's not here to get followers. Like you just said, they are here to win. Karem even himself said on the tournament win yesterday that he wasn't going for big kind of wins or anything. He wasn't trying to stream, but he's trying to go for tournaments. But something interesting going on, we are apparently going into game 1, and we're going to be dropping right over to there as soon as we can. So let's get on to the games and see what's going on with our teams with GodJumps versus Solid State Gaming Dynasty.
Let's get going on this orange as fuck race real quick.
In this competitive style. Alrighty. We are getting used to this, guys. I'm sure you overheard both of us. We got a little technical issues. We are rocking 2 casters instead of the normal one, so it's a little different than what we had before. So with the start of the seesaw, you see everyone going for those basic spawn manipulations. It's the best strategy to go through, and not really any other strategy should suffice. There's a few times that you can skip it, but that's about it. What strategies do you have going into a seesaw like this?
Yeah, I was stuck in Seesaw.
I mean, honestly, Seesaw, in my opinion, the biggest thing, honestly, is the spawn, definitely for, like, kudos-based style competitive games like this, where it's kudos-based, it definitely matters. But really, if you get a great spawn, you just get as clean of a run as you can get, and just ultimately be able to run through and just run through it as clean as possible, and just don't make any mistakes. I mean, if you're farther in the back, you just got to play it carefully and just try to get in front of people. Just make sure you don't mess up or anything.
Yeah, and we're just getting an update. It sounds like Joshin2k's game has crashed, which means that they are going to get a restart on this round, and we will bring it right back to the caster's desk, talk about it while they get reset, and come back in for a reset of round 1. So we got a little bit of a sneak peek right there, everyone. Something small, just to whet your appetite a little bit for the main course that is to come of these 4 rounds of KOZ League games. So give me a little bit of rundown for the new people who haven't seen many of these KOZ League games, Reserve. How is the format set? How does this work? What is the KOZ League, and what are the rules that these players need to follow?
Okay, so basically, again, this KOZ League is a duo-style tournament. So again, it's a lot like a Fallapalooza was in the format, in the sense of there's a duo, and that's a team, and then you have another duo. They queue up into the same squad, into the same lobby, and ultimately, it literally comes down. They play 5 different matches, 5 different episodes, and whoever has the most kudos at the end of those 5 episodes wins. So again, winning those crowns are huge. So literally it can come down to literally every medal, who gets the most gold and silver and all that stuff. So that's ultimately how game to game, how this league works. And then this league is also, this isn't a direct, we're not directly in the playoff finals tournament. What this is basically the regular season of basically any sport you can think of or anything you can think of. We're just in the regular season. Every team, there's 9 different duos. We all play each other twice. So you go through the regular season, you play each other twice, and whoever has the top 4 records will be able to go to a playoff format, which again will be a 1 versus 4, a 2 versus 3. They'll match up. Whoever has it's the same exact format. Whoever has the most kudos, those winners will play each other in a 7-episode match and see who has the most kudos, and who wins that will take home the final championship for this KOZ League, which will be huge to whoever wins it, because you got to grind out the regular season, but then you got to bring it home those playoff games.
Yeah, that's honestly, as a person who doesn't do much competitive, that does sound like a very stressful time, but we do have very strong competitors here. And like we said before, for people who are just coming in now, these are some of the strongest competitors we are bringing to you, because this is the teams that are placed in 1st and 2nd with the correct records of Solid State Gaming Dynasty is 7-1, and God Jumps is at 7-2, just because they've gotten an extra game through before Solid State Gaming was able to get their next game in. It sometimes happens because of scheduling conflicts that some teams get to pull a couple games ahead. But honestly, whoever wins this is going to pull out and get the 1st place title after week 3. And that's really big with only 2 more weeks of play left.
That's absolutely huge. I mean, you have the momentum, you set yourself up with the lead, and you worrying a little less about, am I even going to be able to make the playoffs, even have a chance at playing for the finals, which is a lot of these teams are just like, if I can make the playoffs, I'm at least, set to give myself a chance to win it all. But you also are sitting in the 1 seed. Now you're kind of thinking, okay, how can I maintain my number 1 seed so that I can be a host advantage, especially both of these teams who, again, I will, I'll touch on it several times, but they're EU servers. And so for them, server hosts, for them are even bigger deal than before. And if they finish 1st and 2nd, I mean, I guess host advantage won't be to them, but that in that 1st round, it could be huge, having that extra game going to EU and just having that little bit of host advantage. Just even every little bit of advantage you can get is huge. Even if you're in the same server, just be able to host the party and everything and kind of making those decisions. That's still huge.
No, I completely agree. Like we were saying earlier, the host advantage is so important, especially when you're talking like a US West versus a EU teams. Like there's so much of a difference in ping that players, whoever have that host advantage, is going to go for a completely solid setup. And honestly, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I heard that we are going into our 1st round finally, after we get that reset all starts. Let's switch back over and see what's going on in this round 1 after we get that reset all taken care of. All right, we're seeing some interesting snipe screens going, and interestingly enough, it looks like Ryan is in a game of some sort. So we're going to get that figured out, see what's going on this end. It does look like he's just watching NPCs. He may have not backed out or gotten the memo right away. So it looks like they're going to have to back out and get everything settled up. So while the players get everything settled, we will, again, bring it right back to the casters, to the analysts. And honestly, I'm going to ask Smog, or I'm gonna ask Reserved, not Smock. I'm hanging out with Smock the other day. I'm gonna ask Reserved some interesting questions to pick the mind of a competitor of the KOZ League.
He said it did count as these.
We're actually coming into the game.
And it does apparently see like we're going to flip right back. I got some questions for you. I'll ask later. So let's flip it right back. We got some interesting time.
Cerberus! Let's set this up, man. If you're even there, might just be automated.
I don't know. The trigger said it just counts as DC.
My man, so got spawn. I guess it's fair. Let's go Seesaw.
I feel like we're just having some technical issues. I am not hearing Reserved on my end. As soon as we get that fixed, we will get that all set up.
And I believe I am here. I was just waiting for confirmation that I could hear Neon and everything, you know, so we, you know, all that good stuff. But ultimately, I'll tell you what, I was watching that last seesaw, though, that Jashin got out of. Soul is kind of glad about that, though. I mean, maybe glad about it. I don't know. But Soul literally placed second in that seesaw. So there was an NPC who actually stole the gold from him. So, you know, depending on, I guess, what happens in this round, he may have wishes that, may be glad that that actually happened.
Yeah, this is actually really good. Being able to pull up that first place win, that first place right there, that gold, it's going to be an extra 35 kudos to work with for Team Solid State Gaming and be able to rock this through. And we do see a close matchup, and you also we almost missed that for that white bean, whichever person that was. I'm looking around to see who is who, but they almost missed that silver qualify right there. And we are working to get Ryan LYK stream up and running so you all can see his beautiful game. It does look like he is replaying a scenario that I have seen before we flipped back. So it seems like from what I'm getting at, from what I'm hearing from people who are on the production booth, we are hearing that it looks like he's a little laggy on his end, so we're getting fallen behind. So we'll be following Soul for a lot of the game to be able to know what's going on for Solid State, but we'll keep up with God Jumps on both Karem and Joshin 2K's screen. But Reserved, do you expect any of these teams for any maps taking any kind of shortcuts, anything like the DoorDash jump or anything like that?
That's something.
It probably depends on it's situational, but any crazy out of bounds shortcuts or anything like that, on like DoorDash, it would be kind of dependent. You know, if they think they can get it, I think they're going to go for it. I think both of these teams have players who really know this stuff well, and they know these glitches well. You know, they're competitive players who can do it, but they don't know it well. They're not confident. They're going to play it like safe while taking the shortcuts that they know that'll be okay. But with both of these teams, it could be interesting. We could see some of that here, and just see what happens.
Yeah, and we are going to be going into a Tundra Run round 2, so another basic race map. And honestly, both these teams are very familiar with race maps. They've been doing them all day yesterday, competing back and forth in a tournament called Beanstalk yesterday. And honestly, I can't wait to see it because this is a grudge match. Again, for those of you who are joining, we are literally teams number 1 and 2 ranked in this league are also the teams that were part of the squads that got first Beanstalk champions and second Beanstalk champions. So this is going to be an interesting matchup to see across the board. And we see Soul just running through this map like no one cares, but we do see Karem taking that first away when it was a really close setup because Soul got hit off by that Bonkus.
Yeah, and they also, both of them also got, Soul and Karem both got, at the same time, they got the Superman dive, which for people who play competitive all the time, they have it down pretty decently well, but it does seem to be less common. But ever since Season 4, the physics changed a little bit. There are people, you know, who are like me who play a good amount, but we aren't like perfectly timed, and where it seems like the Superman is extremely rare. So for them to be able to get it, they were probably feeling really good, but then it was like, oh, the other team got it. And ultimately, it looked like Karem just pulled through and just had the better run on it, had the better kind of rotations of the fan and everything like that. But ultimately, it looks like Karem pulled that gold. And but, you know, everything looks to be looks to be shaping up.
Alright, cool. Trigger said I could stop streaming.
All right, and it does seem like we're going to end up having Ryan turning off stream just because we're having some issues there. If Ryan decides to come back on and throw it back on just to see what happens, we will update you by obviously having another screen here. So we'll definitely be focusing on what goes on with Soul, Joshin, and Karem.
I had to go through 5-minute big shots earlier.
So big shots. Could you tell me a little bit about this map? It seems like we're getting a small, different variation. It does have an axe in the middle. For those who are not familiar with the 4.5 updates, give me a little bit of a rundown reserved of what's going on now that there's an axe in this. Does it make it any harder, or is it still the same strats roughly?
Honestly, it's pretty much roughly the same strats. You do got to be a little bit careful with the axe. You never know. But this round, you really like the biggest thing, at least that I play for, that I notice is you cannot let other people grabbing, especially the team you're playing grabbing. You cannot let it get in your head and let it affect you as a player, and you got to just pay attention to those objects, because if you even look away for a half a second, a star could just fly into your face and knock you out and you don't even realize it. So when other teams are grabbing you, just got to stay calm and maybe throw a feed grabs their way just to let them know, hey, I'm here too. But really, you just got to be focused on those objects, kind of stay kind of mid and up a little bit, just so if you get knocked, hopefully you won't get knocked back all the way, and that you'll be able to just survive ultimately, because this map is typically an easy map, but there are crazy things that can happen. So it's just a be careful map really for competitive style players. It's just be careful and just survive the minute and a half and just don't let anything crazy happen.
Yeah. And for these teams, obviously we're in a basic survival map. This is one of those that that looked like almost a bad hit there by one of our players in the back row, but they ended up surviving from it, no problem. But let's see. What kind of final are you kind of hoping to see in this matchup? What finals are you hoping to see? Like a smorgasbord of one of each, or are you hoping to see a specific final come back to be more tactical?
I like to see different finals just because it really shows out like who can get the win, who can be consistent, and it just gives you something a little different. I mean, there have been a couple games throughout this league where I've literally, especially in week 1, there was like 2 games where we had 9 out of 10 games where they were hexagon, low grab or not, but we had just multiple of the same games. So I like to just see differentiations, but sometimes depending on the team you're playing, that one final can be better than the other, because Slightly Salty played Gas, and that was where we had literally 5 hexagons, and Slightly Salty ended up taking that game. But I believe it played into Slightly Salty's favor, just being able to have hexagon, because it's a little bit more of just getting real estate in those slow jump dives, and if you're good at that, it's a little easier to maybe have a better chance of winning versus where even though Jump Showdown's disabled, winning Jump Showdown. But let's go to this Snowball Survival, and Neon, just tell me what you think about these competitors, if they're going to do anything crazy or anything like that.
Well, it looks like they're going for safe strat. When you're doing a Kudo-based tournament in the first rounds, I usually see from the tournaments I've gone around, they're going to play a lot more safe. They don't need to be aggressive. Being aggressive is more when you're behind. You need to catch up points, so you got to go for those more risky plays. But when they're both evened out, all 4 players are here, they're probably just going to chill around, just survive, go about this next 30 seconds that they have, and then just qualify and go to the next round. But you do see a lot of the NPCs destroying a lot of the tiles, and you see them dying to it as well. So it makes it a little more difficult, so you don't have a lot of safety zone. But with also what is really good is this is going to help them potentially get to the final, and they don't really care what happens in survival maps, because as long as they survive, they're all going to get the same amount of score. It's those race maps, it's those team games, it's all that when someone else gets eliminated, you have to take advantage of Kudo situations where you could go further than your opponent.
Exactly. So, again, as you saw, they're playing it very safe, which in the first round is very typical. But you will see some people's play style is just it's just aggressive, and they just want to eliminate people. But it all depends, If I go start grabbing, I could very well get thrown off as well.
Oh my god.
Yep, and we're gonna, like I said, another team game. So this time it's just more of they're just gonna focus on qualifying. They're gonna work together in this scenario. I expect to see the fan glitch used here. There's no doubt about it. It is such an advantageous strategy that pretty much just guarantees you free points. Would you say, Reserve? Jesus, I gotta stop hanging out with Smock if I'm gonna hang out with you next.
No, it's all good. No, Smox is a freaking.
Fuck off, bitch. I'm getting that segment whether you like it or not.
For this
Get your
penguin over here.
And just being able to get your pathing and just kind of build some distance away. And it does look like Karim's kind of building that distance away. And maybe it looks like he's doing the fan strat. So, again, he's looking good right there. And I'm getting to see a little bit of it. He does lose it, but ultimately, again, that he did build a little bit of area. And ultimately, when you see a team down, like you see red team only with 5 points, that you're pretty much good. But you just got to be careful, make sure that red doesn't make some crazy comeback, because crazy things have happened in this game.
Yeah, and obviously, with that lead that yellow's coming to, you're probably going to see everyone making it to the next round. Not too much of an issue. And that's probably what you're going to see in most later team games. The only kind of team games you'll ever expect to see teams to actually lose in a duos tournament or even a squads tournament, when you have 4 of these type of competitive players going at it, has to be like an early Jinx, has to be like an early Hoarders, something that's got a lot more people to it. And so the NPCs have a lot more to say in how the game goes.
Yeah, very typically. I mean, that's usually how it goes, but you never know. You know, there are NPCs, there are players that are just playing this game casually that have no idea that this is going on, who are very good players. And there are people in the Fall Guys community that, like, honestly, sometimes competitors like us, like, we forget about, is that there are people who literally play this game and grind it out and love this game and are really good at it, but they're either younger or they just don't know about the tournament scene. They don't know about this competitive scene. And so they're just, you know, playing and they don't even know. And then you get an NPC in a lobby and you're like, this guy's actually good, because I've had a couple of those in my games where literally an NPC, you know, amazingly griefs everyone or whatever happens. And you're like, I mean, we're all pros. We're in a duo tournament, and this guy is still, like, better than us.
Now with 10 people, we are setting ourselves in an interesting situation with a team game just going off. We're either going to see a final or we're going to end up seeing a button bashers in this scenario. I would like to see the button bashers because this is one of my favorite games. But the interesting thing is our players could actually pair off against each other, because that is how it's set up in the game right now. And that could be really detrimental if you play off against your own teammate.
Because they could face each other, we wouldn't know until the end.
And if you do play against your own team, that actually, your own duo, that would be a restart. But you can play against the other squad. Let's see if we have any of that. It does not believe Karim is playing anybody in a squad. Let's see, Jashin's screen's kind of freezing up a little bit. I was just trying to see if they were playing anybody in their squad. But
that
I don't
is
believe
Soul. It looks like it's Soul and Ryan in the same
Oh,
exact
wow, it
game
actually. Yep.
as we were
And we
just
will actually.
calling.
We will actually believe, now, I mean, we'll need confirmation, but I believe we will be having a restart.
Yep. And we do have that confirmation that it's going to be a restart. So while our players all back out, get all set up for this restart, we will bring it back to the analyst desk and actually talk about what we saw and see what we could figure out how this match is going to go. We have 5 rounds ahead of us, and we had a little sneak peek again of how these players are performing and what we could expect out of them. So tell me what you saw, Reserved. Anything good, anything bad, anything you think these teams need to work on right now?
Honestly, these two teams, I think they know coming in, they're the 1 and 2 teams, and they know how big this game is. It's game of the week. You know, they're playing on top of their game. They're literally doing everything they can. What I don't see so far is any like cheeky grabs or kind of cheeky plays against the other team. They both have major respect for each other. So they're really just playing it out, and they're just literally trying to survive, you know, have the best runs in those race maps that they can, and just ultimately try to make it to the finals and build their lead that way, because they both have confidence in themselves. And, you know, a lot of Fall Guys competitors, they want to build leads based off crowns. You know, you just want to get that crown as a competitor. You want to win that game. You know, it's like, okay, you win by kudos, but they really want to win by that. And because they have major respect, they're both playing it close to the chest, and they're both just, I mean, on point. You know, we haven't seen any crazy rounds where anybody gets eliminated, where anybody could have gotten eliminated.
So it does sound like Joshin did get eliminated, but they're going to get noticed that they do need to back out, because they would not have known. They were in comms with each other. The only people who would have known to back out immediately would have been Team Solid State Gaming, who were going to play against each other. But as soon as we get this next game started, we will be going there. It sounds like we'll be going to a quick break as we settle everything in the dust, and we'll be right. And that would be, and I've got a confirmation that we are not going to break. I'm sorry about that. I'm hearing 50 different things in my head at the same time, but we'll be getting back to the games as soon as we can. Something interesting I did notice in those first couple rounds actually would be that first round Soul from Solid State Gaming took that first place in the game 1 in that Whirly gig. And then the next round, Karem from God Jumps took first place in the Tundra run. So they are both fighting very even footing on those races. So we could see a very close Kudos based game just from those 2 rounds that we saw alone.
I mean, I really do think this will be a very close game. I think the only way that this isn't a close game to the end is if God Jumps or Dynasty, if ultimately they just pull away with more crowns, if they can build if someone can build a 2-crown lead or get with Jump Showdown disabled right now, in main show, you just have, you do have potentials for timeouts and thin ice and roll off, but because of it's a duo tournament, they're just going to make sure that ultimately it just goes down to who lives. But if anything crazy like that happens, it could throw it off. But ultimately, you building the only way I see anything crazy like happening where it's not a close game is if someone just builds a 2-crown lead and then are able to maybe get that third game going. But I have seen games in this league where literally a team will lose the first 2 crowns and make it a close game. They'll literally win the next 2 crowns and then make it into game 5, basically tied, maybe a little behind in Kudos, but basically tied. So you never know what'll happen. I think they'll really just play it close to the chest and just kind of see what happens. But really, they're both great teams as y'all are seeing right now, and you'll see what happens.
All right, it seems like we're going to be switching over to a nice Dizzy Heights round 1, everyone. Joshin's going to flip up that, and as you see us in this nice top right screen, we'll take over for Ryan and make sure that something's going on up here while we got our teams of Solid State Gaming. We'll be seeing Soul Reed Stare, and on the other side, on the left hand, you will be seeing God Jumps with Karem and Joshin. So what do you expect to see here in a Dizzy Heights from these teams? I'm sure you've played at least one of these teams on this map.
I mean, again, these teams they really do play it close to the chest. They really do have an absolute 100% faith in their speed runs, in their ability to get it. You see Karem and Soul both getting great spawns, so they're kind of right next to each other. Karem with a slight lead, depending, I guess, on whose screen you're looking at. But you do have this NPC coming up. It'll be interesting. Oh, you do start to see a grab right there, and Karem is able to get a little bit of a lead, but he is with this NPC. So it'll be interesting to see how Karem finishes this out and see what kind of variant we get. And we do get a little bit different of a variant, but he will be able to just, I believe, speed run it, and it looks like Karem will have a clean run for first place.
Yeah, unless something weird happens, I don't expect anything. He's got to have something weird happen with the hammer. Even takes the boosted hammer. That was a very clean run there by Karem, snagging that first place and actually going to give them some extra kudo lead advantage. So that 35 kudos is going to come in handy, because anyone who thinks, oh, it's just 35 kudos, it's not a lot. I'm like, I'm sure Reserve can confirm there has been so many matches that have been won by a couple hundred points. So every single medal that you get is going to change how this game is played.
And there are definitely potential times where I was playing a game where if we had lost the last final, it literally, and if the other team would have lost the last final as well, if it had been like an NPC game, it would have literally been a 95 kudo difference, if not a little bit less than that. So everything can count, and it all adds up to you get a gold, you get another in a race map, then you get another and another, and your teammate can still clutch up that silver. I mean, that's absolutely huge. And honestly, that grab from Karem, throwing Soul off his pathing and just being able to kind of stop and grab him and just throw him off and be able to kind of maintain that lead in first, and then just have a really clean run, perfect with the hammer at the end and everything was absolutely perfect. And I mean, you have that run that was exactly what Karem wanted. Build that little bit of confidence. And Soul also, you can maybe tell, was a little bit off his game after that, but I'm sure going into the next round that Soul will be fine.
I don't try to fix it until I fucking get the medal.
Yeah, and with a perfect match, I'm expecting an easy qual by everyone, unless we get the perfect death match, which is always a variant that I love to see, or even a penguin. I'd love to see a penguin. But we got our basic perfect match. This is going to be an easy qual. If any of the players die here, it's going to be a rare occurrence, realistically, to die on a perfect match when you're at this kind of caliber of a player.
Okay, so we got that medal.
Exactly. Like the only way I could see is maybe getting a lucky double pop off someone and just having, where the other person's physics, in the game just react badly and get thrown off. But other than that, I think most of them are gonna, again, being a round one, I think they're not gonna go crazy on the griefs or anything. I think they're just gonna play it close to the chest. They're gonna be, sometimes you might be able to hear them calling out, because I know me when I play this game, I'm literally like, okay, cherry, orange, grape, cherry, orange, whatever it is, and I stand on my one and I just don't even say that one. But then they have their own little strat. Maybe they're smarter than I am. But, really you're just going to be focusing, just making sure you're not doing anything stupid. NPCs aren't going to mess with you. But really just kind of focus on those fruits. Make sure that you absolutely have the right one so you don't leave it up to chance. You don't try to, follow the crowd and then find out you're wrong. No, you want to just know which one to go to and know that for sure which one, especially in games like this, where every once in a while you'll see a crowd of people go somewhere and it's wrong. So you just don't want to fall in that crowd.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of teams, there are some teams out there that have gone with the ideas of if you're in a duos, they just split the fruits. They already know what fruits they're going to look for. And then another interesting strat that a lot of people will use, not just trying to memorize everything, they only need to memorize so many because on the last set, the answer is always going to be something that has 3 spaces to it. So if you find something that only has 2 of the option, because that's an option for 2 of the fruits, you can just ignore those. Like if there's only 2 apples or 2 grapes, you don't even need to look for those anymore because there's only 2 of them. You know it's not going to be the final answer.
Sorry, obnoxious. I'm focused.
Yeah, see, that's something that I'd heard of, and I'm not that good in seeing, okay, there's only 2 of this. No, I just want to be able to know, like, okay, orange, apple, grape, cherry, watermelon. I want to know exactly what I'm looking for. And I mean, me personally, I always stand on banana. Pretty much always stand on, and we get a slime scraper coming up, which can be very interesting, very huge. In a first round, I'm not sure we're gonna see. We might see some cheeky grabs here and there. But it's too bad we're not seeing this on like a round 5 because you would definitely see a lot more like maybe standing behind and griefing. But we'll see if any of these teams do that or if they have the respect to just go qual, or see if they get any NPCs out. We'll see what happens here. But ultimately, this is a very difficult map, even for competitors. I mean, this is a very difficult map to deal with. And let's just kind of see the shortcuts they're able to take and see what they know in this map.
Yeah, I don't expect many of our players to take that first gap jump. It is too risky to play. If you get grabbed, you're out and you lose all bits of anything you could be doing. But we do see Karem just speed running, but we do have an NPC fighting, and they got hit by the light swing, which is going to put them back just a little bit, giving a little bit of an advantage to this NPC. And you still want that first place in these kinds of tournaments. It's very important. And you would see that should be... Yeah, that's going to be Ryan and Karem both sitting there fighting against each other up front. And I forget if there was an NPC even further up or not. But you see how cleanly Karem's going. Karem is just running. There's the NPC. You see him right up ahead. But Karem is just flying through this map. Doesn't care about anything. But that NPC doesn't take the right flippers. But... it's a close one, and oh my god, we get that lead, and the grab by the NPC!
Bro, Ryan just went straight through, and an NPC just grabs me. Nice, bro. And he just gets the free first.
Wow, that was crazy. And also, you see Karem doing the little flipper thing the first time around. He kind of did the flipper trick, which I have not learned yet. And he falls again, though. And, I mean, he clearly knows the map well, but I think he let that grab maybe get to his head a little bit on that second run. He's got to kind of clear his head right now and just make sure he goes in quals right now.
Yeah, he's going to get a grab. He tries to grab his opponent, and it doesn't work, and there's a shark just waiting to get some grabs, too. But it does look more like... oh, and it gets blocked off by the opponent. But realistically, if you're not getting gold on this map, you're probably going to get a silver because not many people are going to qualify. This is still a map that usually goes straight into a final. The NPCs can't deal with it just yet.
Yeah, or a lot of times it will go into a butt mashers if he's get an even number. So that definitely happens too. But again, yeah, it very much is definitely in-game scenario. So we'll see what happens here. But a lot of craziness going on early on.
Yeah, and we do see some of the NPCs trying the grab strats here, just waiting on the bridge, just going to grab some people. It looks like Karem's stream had froze, so we'll watch the last couple people go through on Soul's stream. As honestly... we're going to see about 10 people qualify, 9 people. That is a big amount for a slime scraper nowadays. Honestly, I've seen a lot of 4 quals from slime scrapers anymore.
You know, I've seen mixes. I've seen low numbers, but I've actually seen a lot of 6, 7, 8s. You know, 9's kind of pushing it, but I've seen a bit up there. But I mean, I will say with 9 people though, 9 people will bring a final, I believe, because that does not leave an opportunity for an even number button basher or a team game or anything like that. So it does appear that we will go straight into a final. I mean, unless something crazy happens, but in a main show, you will see a final coming on. But let's see what they get real quick. In a thin ice.
So we're 1 medal behind. That's the idea.
It sounds like we just got an update that Karem's stream has died. Our production team is working diligently to make sure that this is fixed up. But we still have one player from each team. Josh and 2K for God Jumps and Soul Reed Stare from Solid State Gaming Dynasty. Whoever wins this match, whoever gets the crown, is going to take the lead in game 1 of this league match. And it's important because this, everyone knows, is for first place. If you win this, you're going to have a big advantage. And you see Soul starting off with the strat to run down some of the side, not wanting to do anything. But everyone's opting for the cut the middle in half and then play the 1v1 on the sides.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see kind of if they cut it down the middle, see kind of the matchups that they choose to go with, because sometimes you may just pick a random side, but maybe you feel like one player matches up better with the other depending on, especially as much as these teams play, they may know who they kind of want matched up with who and who benefits them. But it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, you always got those NPCs that you never know. Again, you had a lot of NPCs qualify on a Slime Scraper. I mean, there were a couple of NPCs that you could tell they knew what they were doing. So you never know if an NPC could actually pull it out, especially in these duo-style tournaments. That what I find a lot is you're just trying to make sure the other team doesn't win, sometimes more than anything. So it's like, okay, as long as you can guarantee they don't win, you're at least, if you feel confident in your Kudo runs, you're just going to keep going with those Kudo runs and ultimately just try to see if anything can happen and just ultimately make sure they don't win. So it'll be really interesting to see.
I would like you to confirm something for me because I'm looking around and I'm not seeing Karem in this matchup at all.
I'm
literally only... Yeah, it looks like that Karem might be out for God Jumps, causing this to be a 2v1 in the favor of Dynasty. And I would very well assume it with how aggressive Soul is being right here.
Just gonna run it out.
I'm gonna just run all your stuff out. So
And again,
so we're gonna see what happens. Yeah, and Soul jumps to the other side. We do see Joshin go to the other side. I don't think that was the play because there were less players over there. And as we're going to switch over, we're going to watch Joshin over here as Joshin is just going to see what he can do. He's playing in this 2v1. And honestly, I think the jump over here was the bad strat because now all of a sudden this is going to leave all the room in the world for Ryan just to kind of run out the map and just let all this time go to the other side. And that should be the strat. They should not be going for grabs. They need to run out this map, make sure Joshin can't win so Soul can just win it by themselves on the other side.
And you almost see I believe that's Ryan. It looks like Ryan, you know, he's getting a couple grabs in, but really, I mean, yeah, running it out. And it does look like Joshin is dead. So you see Soul over here with a bit of real estate. So it's just as long as you take care of these NPCs, they're going to have the easy win.
Yeah, and as we switch over, we're going to be watching Soul pretty much take over this game, doing the jump dive strat. It saves so little time, but if you do it correctly, that little time adds up so well. And now we're just waiting for this last NPC and or player to just fall off. Can't really see because the angle that Soul is doing with his space, but this should be pretty good.
It is his teammate left, so they do have the win. They're just playing it out, I believe, is what it looks like. So, yes, and it is his teammate, so they do actually clutch up the win. So that is huge for Team Dynasty as they will take a 1 crown lead, which obviously translates into kudos. But as soon as we get those official numbers, we will update you. But getting that jump in kudos will be absolutely huge. Just taking that first game lead and making those plays, that's absolutely huge.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we're going to switch back to the analyst desk and go over what we saw there in round 1. So I'm going to go straight to the pro. I'm going to go straight over to Reserved Comic. I'm not the guy playing in these matches. I got someone who's got the better insight, got the mechanics down, knows what's going on. So Reserved, tell me what you thought happened in that game. Tell me what you think could have been better on either side from what we were seeing.
On thin ice, obviously we did not see what happened to Karim or Joshin, one of the teammates, but the other person, you know, as you were saying, kind of jumped over, and obviously I guess they thought that was the better move, but I mean, once it's a 2v1, it's just really rough, and you've made the decision to cut it through the middle. but you lose a teammate, and I mean that's just not looking good for you. So the one problem about like, oh, you both cutting it out is you both cutting it out equally and taking that chance. If you lose a player, I mean that's huge, and that's kind of a game over. So sometimes, I mean, what Smog and I do will sometimes is just play it out and just almost play it as a solo, unless they try to make an island, and then just run it out. Both of us run that island out and then jump over. That way we force them to actually beat us and not just build an island strat, because at the end of the day with the island strat, it turns into a 1v1, and it's always a little bit of physics, a little bit of chance here and there. And it's just a rough thing to do. Again, if you feel confident, obviously you're going to do that, which both of them obviously feel confident. So you obviously see that. But it's just a rough decision to make. It just it literally come down to a split-second decision at times, or that just cheeky grab that literally, in your mind at least, that seems cheeky, that maybe you just happen to grab them at the right time, with the desync, with a little bit of difference, and it literally is timed perfectly, and they just fly off the map, or they just they're able to miss that dive, or whatever the case being. So I mean, definitely you see God Jumps definitely could have played that a little better, but I mean, it definitely is hard to go back, with teams that are this good, doing the strats as confident as they are. But Dynasty played it as well as they could have at the end, NASCAR at the end, and made sure that NPCs did not win either. They took care of them, made sure there wasn't any crazy NPC that took the win from them, especially when it was 2 of them left. They made sure and clutched the game.
Yeah, and something big that I noticed, I don't think Karim actually, there's a chance he may not have even made it to the final and died in that slime scraper as well. We may have missed that, but something big is if Karim did not make it through that slime scraper, it's all going to come down to one thing. It's like we said in the game, once you freak out about something, if you let something get to you, that's going to affect your gameplay. You need to just keep a cool, calm, collected thing. He got grabbed down by that NPC, and yeah, it sucks, but you just calm down. You just got to reset, because you saw him get grabbed down. He went around, and then he just missed a jump, an easy jump across to the treadmills, and fell right back down again. That could have gone bad from there on out, and then we started seeing a little bit of a freeze, which is where it happened. So it is kind of weird. I believe he qualled, but I don't know for sure, because it was so early that Karim wasn't on the map. So I can't confirm until we see kudos, because the kudos should only be roughly about an 800 point to a 700 point difference.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be close, but in that regard. But I mean, I will say, if he did get a limbed in that slime scraper, then it was a 2v1 thin ice. That is something that, as a competitor, I have found in these leagues, that a 2v1 thin ice is almost never good for you. A 2v1 is where you want like a hexagon, where you can still pull out the win, which I and Smock ourselves, like, we've done, and I know other teams have done it, where the 2v1, your best chance is something like a hexagon, but then you don't want to see that thin ice. You don't want to, even fall mat, and you don't want to see with that grab. But you also, every once in a while, a 2v1 can work out, but that thin ice is just a very weird map to play 2v1, especially if there's that island strat where you're forced to kind of pick a side and then ultimately just hope for the best.
And what's going to be interesting is we're going to be going into round 2, and we actually have Dynasty at 1440 and God Jumps only at 705. That crown showing how powerful it is. We'll be updating those down in the bottom as soon as we can, but that is a lead right there. But it does seem like it is only that crown. So it does look like they made it to the final, and that crown showed so much. They were even going into it. So, I mean, like we said, every game's going to be even, and the crown is going to be the difference maker. And after 5 rounds, if there's a round we don't see a crown, we could be seeing a really close game. But that does give the lead to Solid State Gaming.
Absolutely, that crown again is so huge, and them being able to take that lead. But ultimately, it just comes down to just, who can win the crowns. But, maybe even sometimes what you'll see even is if you're up a crown, you'll see, like, as long as the other team doesn't win, as long as you get it, and you see Jashin with a clean run Superman, and you see Soul Reed also coming in with the Superman. But it looks like Jashin has the lead, and it will depend on how he hits this to see if he's able to get to the finish line. Oh, he gets hit by Bongus, and it looks like Soul will barely steal first.
And that was with Royal Stomping winner right behind. So that would have been his teammate. So that would have been Soul, followed up by Ryan LYK. And then it looks like Joshin and Karim made it through so early that they got silvers. But that's going to be another 35 kudos swinging over in the favor of Solid State Gaming Dynasty. So this is going to be a big advantage that they could play. Now we're going to see how these NPCs fare. Always a great time watching them go onto these fans and get hit by bonkuses, because it takes them forever to figure out You need to just wait, just watch the bonkus and play from there.
Yeah, you see these NPCs, I know that when I'm playing the game and especially when I'm not in like tournament competitive games, when I'm just kind of casually playing and if I'm just streaming or whatever's going on, I'll literally just be like, go NPC, go, like whoever I'm watching, I'll just be rooting for them, like do this, do that, but like just to make it entertaining. And you sometimes will see, if you have fun with it, sometimes you'll see these NPCs clutch up some crazy runs, but you see this furry alien just struggling just to get through and ultimately not falling, and it's just a rough day.
Yeah, I mean, as they add variants, it does make it harder for the NPCs, and a lot of the computer NPCs I know are having issues just because they're trying to use the WASD keys still, so they're using their WASD, and there's a lot of people who are picking up Fall Guys as one of their first computer games they've ever played, and that's going to be really challenging to be able to control a character with a mouse and WASD keys when you're only used to a controller your whole life. But we're going to be going to a roll on. I'm a big fan of this map because it's something that I can handle. I just get to hold my joystick forward and I make it to the finish line. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is a round that I do like. It was a good addition to Fall Guys. I've always joked ever since you got Roll Out as the original from Season 1. You got Roll Off as a final from Season 3 that came out, and then you got Roll On. So my guess would be it'd be the next rap's gotta be Roll In, right? Where you maybe roll in, but this is pretty easy. Maybe if you get those perfect kind of jumps onto, the rollers, what you kind of want to do sometimes is you see Jashin doing it a little bit. You kind of go with the momentum sometimes, and you just allow it to carry you ultimately to give you those extra few seconds that could get you that gold. And it does look like Jashin is kind of up in the lead with this NPC.
Hey, grab him.
Yeah, Soul made a slight mistake, or a slight error there, falling a little bit behind. Could have made it, but that was a smart play by Jocelyn, getting the frame-perfect dive as well, making that first place, making up for losing out that gold in the first map. So we'll see if everyone can get it. That should still be the checkpoint, so we'll be fine there. But top 8 is the number, so that's actually really big. We're going to be seeing a bronze coming in here eventually by Crazy Mini Heroes. So this is going to be not the best thing you could hope for. So that's going to lose those kudos back that Soul earned from round 1 there.
Exactly, and it definitely will help. God jumps, but at this point again, you're just gonna have where ultimately you're just gonna need to win those crowns and just stay alive. But you see Jashin with that clean run, but I will say that NPC definitely gave him a run for his money, and if he hadn't hit that perfect little jump kind of at the end where the jump boost where he got, if he hadn't hit that and he would have just kind of walked down and not hit that right, I think the NPC would have taken it from him. So sometimes you just gotta watch out for these NPCs and make those plays. So that was a really clutch just play at the end, making that perfect jump, jump and dive at the finish line. That was absolutely perfect to make sure that his team did clutch up gold, and make sure that they did clutch it up for him, give him those points.
Yeah, and as you were saying earlier, while we're waiting for this last NPC to go in, we were talking about roll in. I agree. Now I want to know, what do you think roll in would look like when they make roll in? How is that map going to look?
I think what it's probably going to be is like a similar layout as roll out, except it is going to be. It's probably going to be something like where the slime is below it, where it's like kind of just almost floating in the air or held up by something. And ultimately, I think you're going to spawn inside the rollers, and ultimately you're going to have to just stay alive. And so that's what I think it would be. I don't know. I don't know if it'd be a final or like a roll out where it's just kind of a preliminary round. I mean, that obviously doesn't sound like a race map, but who knows? I mean, they could make a race map to where it's very similar to roll on. And it's just you roll inside of it, and it's just kind of like you're almost walking on the inside of it and everything. They could just do a race map where they have checkpoints and respawns, but I would just love to see how a survival would play out like that. But I feel like it might just become like a rollout where, again, it's a little more boring just in modes like this where, like, okay, you typically survive and all that. But it's really interesting to see everything the Fall Guys comes up with, because they always have some great ideas, and it's just always interesting. Even if they're not your favorite modes or anything, or it's just easy walls, they're trying their best. They really do try to come up with some really creative ideas.
Fuck out the way, Doc.
Yeah, but we're gonna be going on to the game at hand as we see a missed jump there that by Soul. Soul's having a little bit of an issue, is fighting it a bit with Karem, but interestingly enough, as we watch Soul, you see Soul with his teammate coming up on this wall guys right now, and they're making a couple mistakes falling right there. This is going to be very detrimental. Now with 18 qual, you do get some extra time to be able to qual, but this is still going to be a little bit problematic in my opinion. Soul's going to have to figure out what he needs to do to make this comeback. And it does look like they pulled all the boards back to catch up. And I think we've qualified one of the players, and I think Karem got gold because Karem did break away from the crowd with a really nice setup. But the path does look to be where Soul's going. Soul's making a big advantage of this, trying to move it himself, taking advantage of what he can. Needs his teammate to come with him so that way he can work it out. Does seem to be pushing off the opposing team, just trying to fight him off to get his teammate in. They're going to fight it off and hug it out. They may decide to go for that 1v1, but that good jump up gets him up. We'll see if he turns around and sees how we're going to play this. It's going to be easy.
Wow.
They're both just going to run in, qual. The big thing is, did that mess up any kind of medals that they could have gained if they would have just gone for it?
I mean, I'm not sure just seeing the numbers directly, but I mean, maybe it messed it up. But it was just interesting to see some cheeky grabs. Just, you know, the first round again, they were just playing it close to the chest. But now with just further into the games, even if you're in the lead, you just kind of see those cheeky grabs where you just maybe want to build a little bit of a lead, maybe see if something crazy can happen where they don't qual. Where you see that they were definitely struggling, but the end was just kind of a bad where everything was pushed back. If everything had been pushed back, I'm not sure Soul would have been chilling or how that would have gone, but definitely could have been an issue, but ultimately they make it work, they qual, and we'll see how it goes.
But not me winning. That just makes sense.
Yeah, and with 17 people making it to the next round, all 4 made it through. We're not going to be seeing any team games, button bashers, anything like that. We're probably going to see another race round or a survival, like Jump Club. Now let's see if this is hard Jump Club or easy Jump Club coming here.
I don't want to be anywhere near Josh.
My biggest thing is always the fruits. If there's fruits in there, I get scared, especially as of late. Fruit murders me. I mean, I think it was the game of the week in week 1 where I was actually playing in it. I literally think I got murdered by a fruit. A fruit just came and just flew me off the map. I didn't get like ragdoll. I literally just flew off the map, like, you know, and it's just dead. So, and I mean, literally you have fruit and it's just 1 bar too. So, I mean, these competitors are very good. Unless you see a crazy cheeky grab by either an NPC or by each other, they should be watching out for that, especially in games like this where they should be able to just jump over the bar, qualify, do what they can, and all that good stuff. But we'll see if anything kind of crazy happens here.
Well, I see Karem going for some grabs already, so we'll see how this works out as we are getting just some grabs in this game, and that could knock out people. So keep your eye on that feed in case we miss something. But if Karem's going to go off on people, I know Karem doesn't care, and Karem's one of the biggest griefers, one of the biggest killers, I should say, as we don't want to give any bad terminology here, one of the biggest killers in this game. And you see a grab on Soul. They're attempting to get it. Joshua was going for that play right there. So this play here is to really, I would say, step away from your opponent and just kind of chill out. Wait for the NPCs to fail it, because the NPCs will eventually fail it.
Yeah, you know, typically you can just stay alive long enough, especially without the fruit. So there's no like chance of just like, you know, where a fruit could come in and hit you randomly where you just want to end the round and be done with it. That way you don't have an issue with fruits. But since there's not fruits, you know, just wait on NPCs. But this round actually went like a good amount of time considering this is just like a regular lobby. This actually went for a long time with only 6 people that needed to be eliminated. So, I mean, kind of a shout out to these NPCs and these competitors for just going for a while. And just to confirm, it does look like we have all 4 of our competitors that more than likely we will be heading into a final, but let's see what map we go into next.
Yeah, and depending on what map we go into, we'll give you a special one-shot of probably in this situation. I want to see, we'll go back over because for what Solid State Gaming did last game, I want to see this perspective from Soul. Let's see what's going on because last game they did really well. They had so much team coordination, so we're going to watch Soul's screen and see what they have going on this game.
And 1 low grab, which was super fun.
So tell me what Soul's got in his mind in this game. It's an early game. It's 11 people reserved, so obviously there's so many different strategies. What do you think Soul's got going through his mind right now with this scenario?
I think, honestly, I mean, for me, especially as these games keep going on with duo leagues, I think the biggest thing would be, at least on my mind, be like, just make sure, whether we win or not, make sure that God Jumps does not win. So, especially when it gets down here and the ice gets cut out a bit more, just stay with God Jumps. Make sure that their real estate is at least cut out to where you at least force them to make the play to win is at least what I would be thinking as Soul. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. Just make sure they don't win so you can keep that crown lead that you have, or even extend it if you get the win. But, you know, who knows? Maybe they feel comfortable. Maybe they'll be able to make a clutch jump onto some real estate and win it for themselves. But we'll see. You see a bit of grabbing from Soul's teammate Ryan, and I believe it's either Jaskin or the other teammates. You see them grabbing a bit more, but you see Soul just kind of chilling out right near Jaskin. You just see him chilling right here in kind of the middle, just kind of hitting out the ice. You know, you don't see any island strats this game or anything like that. You see him chilling out, so ultimately it's going to come down to this last bit of ice or a cheeky grab.
Speaking of which, there's a 2v1 going on as both the teammates come right over and try to make a play, but Soul does run away. And you see, I want to mention Soul's camera work. He does always make sure, and you'll see him constantly twist over. He wants to see his opponents, but you'll also see him switching over to make sure he gets a decent look at what's going on with his teammate. And that was a really close one. They're still surviving, but he's now on Karem, going to be able to fight off Karem, but this is a slightly sticky area as this area is dying. Almost gets desynced off by that duck. So we're going to be getting into a more greedy area, but you don't want to be next to your teammate, but you also want to protect your teammate. So you do see them calling off, and you can hear on the comms that they're staying away from each other. And Soul falls. This is going to get Joshin to still go, and you're seeing Joshin go at it right now. And it does look like Royal Stomping Winner goes down. So this is going to be Joshin's game to go for. And Joshin does pick up the win on game 2.
No, that was a normal 3-tile, but
and you hear Jashin's extremely hyped up to be able to clutch that and make it basically a 1 crown to 1 crown, where the kudos are only going to be differentiated based on these race maps and other things that they had to go through. And ultimately, I mean, I kind of saw Soul, you know, jumping over. I thought I saw some real estate, and I was like, I don't know why he wasn't going for it, but I don't know. I mean, that's something I'd kind of have to watch the replay, maybe watch from his point of view, but he just it looked like he had a line of real estate, and it looked like he just didn't take it. So I'd be curious to know kind of what happened and what went down. But that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and we're going to switch back over to the analyst desk right now. Honestly, guys, that was well played on both sides. So when we get these score updates, it's going to be a close one. We've been seeing so many close games. They've been fighting back and forth for kudos on just these small race maps. And then with a crown going to both sides, just the crown itself, not counting what they have earned in this round, is going to even the scores. So essentially the crown is going to make it 1440 to 1440. But now the question is, how did the rounds up to that point go to who gets the favor going into match 3? Because honestly, a small kudo lead, as you were saying, gives you such an advantage, because that changes if you have to play offensive versus playing defensive. And that's a big change in your play style. And it's a big difference. I'm sure you've played it yourself. Can you explain a bit of a difference between like a defensive play style and an offensive play style, specifically on thin ice? Because we've seen that twice over the rounds 1 and 2.
You know, the one thing about this that's at least nice, though, situational. But right now, you know, you have 5 matches overall to go, and it's a 1-to-1 into game 2. So ultimately, you have like 3 crown opportunities. So, I mean, tied to 1-to-1, you don't, even with the small kudo lead, you just got to like clutch up those race maps. You just got to try to make those speed runs. Ultimately, you know, as of right now, you know, you could see maybe a bit more grabbing from whoever is down. But ultimately, I think you're just going to see them just playing it out and seeing who gets that crown until you're down like a crown or something, you know. I mean, ultimately, you're just going to play it out right now in their current situation. But yeah, I mean, if you get down, absolutely, you got to just make some grabs. I mean, I know that Smock and I, even when we've been down like quite a bit, almost to impossible modes, where we've literally, we'll sit in race maps and we'll just literally grab them just to see if we can try to get them to mess up or like not qual or something, just to change a pace, just to see if anything crazy happens. And like on Snowball Survival, as you saw them just sitting there on that first round that ended up getting reset due to that button bashers, you see that they kind of are just playing safe, but you might see some more running out of tiles and the ice and everything else. But it all depends, you know, about how it's played and everything like that. So really, I mean, defensive and offensive is very different. And defensive, obviously, it just depends on your playstyle too. Everyone has their own playstyle. There are people who go crazy and they grief all the time or grab all the time and all that. And they just kind of kill those players, or they play defensive, where like my playstyle, where I just kind of like play defensive. So sometimes playing in your comfort zone is just the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and One big thing that's going on right now is we do have our updated scores, and with that win, God Jumps actually would have taken a 2-medal advantage over Solid State Gaming Dynasty. As you see the scores in the bottom at 24-25 to God Jumps, at 23-55 to Solid State Gaming Dynasty. That is literally only a 2-medal lead. So just getting those golds is slowly adding up in God Jumps' favor to put them ahead. As you saw, round 1 was a perfect tie with only the crown being the difference, but round 2, God Jumps knows what's up. They're trying to get these races, and you saw it right there. Soul did make a small mistake that could have taken a gold away from God Jumps in that roll-on, and Soul could have gotten the gold there if he didn't make that small mistake, which would have evened out the scores after 2 rounds. So you can see that just one mistake can already put you behind. So I think all they just got to do is shake it off, go to the next game. It's basically a restart, but this does give a small favor to God Jumps to play in that defensive method to where they don't need to win the crown. They just need to make sure they're maintaining their medal lead, and that Solid State does not win the crown, and then they can pretty much hold this lead and ride it out to the end.
And so ultimately, you just see Dynasty ultimately just coming through and they're still playing well. They're still playing competitive. Ultimately it just came down to those last plays that they made. And, you can look back, but at the end of the day, you just got to move on. Really, it's basically like Neon was saying, it's a reset, and you have Dynasty with that reset. And, God Jumps with that little bit of a lead. You see Jashin was fired up, just being able to kind of basically make that kind of tie in crowns and just ultimately being fired up. So I think that definitely, that when you're able to get fired up like that, that definitely carry on, at least make you feel more confident going in, and just make you feel more focused and more energetic and all that kind of stuff. But also the thing too is you got bronze medals. If you get a bronze medal, that knocks you down. So even clutching up a silver for your team is huge.
All right, and we're going to be switching over to our game, match number 3, as we're going into a Dizzy Heights Dynasty, only behind by 2 medals, so this is going to be very important. You see Soul getting the good spawn, being able to pull this small lead to try and pull back these 2 medals that they need to get back to at least a tied position.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And again, you see Jashin up ahead, I believe, as last round. And Soul and Jashin both got great spawns and are both kind of next to each other. But you see Jashin's teammate Karim kind of coming up near him, and it'll be really interesting. You don't have the spinners, though, so they're dropping down.
Ryan has good
Yeah, so this is going to be very interesting because we do see the lead going to Soul, and both the teammates are right behind. If they can get one single grab, this changes everything. But I'm assuming because they're behind, they have to go for the pinch push, and there's no really other option. It's a little risky because if you don't hit it correctly, you do fall behind. And you see Joshin go off to the side, but Soul does fall, losing that first place again. This is going to start adding up, and this is going to be a pretty bad scenario because this may also take Soul out of the potential to even get that silver medal. And yeah, with that, Soul doesn't even get the silver, losing more medals for the team. These small little errors are going to start adding up because that gave a gold away, which is already a medal. And then by getting that bronze, that's going to be another medal. So they just put themselves another 70 kudos behind and 4 medals to catch up. So they really just need, Dynasty just needs to take a breath, take a breather, reset themselves, and come back to this. They just need to know that they can win matches. They did great in match 1, but now it's match 3, and they need to hold that performance that they had since match 1.
Exactly, and basically, it's tied in crowns. Ultimately, if you start getting behind in kudos, if a Dynasty ultimately doesn't pull through and is able to not get that kudo lead, it might come down to game 5 where literally Dynasty will have to win a crown. And at that point, again, you can see that's where you kind of see that defensive where God Jumps just make sure Dynasty doesn't win, especially if you see a hexagon. They might just stay with one. They might pick one and just stay with the person. Make sure they literally just don't win, like whether it's cutting out their real estate or grabbing them down, whatever they feel confident with. You'll just see that going on. And we do come up with an amazing slime scraper again. I always love watching this mode. It's always so intense because it is not a guaranteed qualifier, even for competitive gamers. And you do get to see cheeky grabs. You do get to see different play styles. And you just get to see them run through. And as, more casual players might be watching this tournament, just being able to see kind of the tricks and learn it and just have more fun with the game.
Yeah, and Joshin getting a really great start, making sure that he is going to just run through this map, try and get the easy first place, get another medal advantage, which is going to be really big for God Jumps. Dynasty really going to have to make some maneuvers to catch right back up. But honestly, this is the map I love seeing. When we're seeing a slime scraper, this is the map that is always exciting. There's so much to it. It's a new map that not everyone really knows the best strategy, because still strategies are being implemented slowly but surely. And you see Soul going with that safety strategy, walking through the whole way, not going for jumps, but is right there behind Josh and still trying to compete for first. And this is what I was talking about. Soul has been up here, always trying to compete, trying to get that first place spot, but just hasn't been able to do it. But at least getting that second, might be able to get a good flipper, messes up the flipper. Oh, but Joshin goes to the side, so it depends on how this flipper goes, because this is a really close one. You see it, and Joshin still takes that first place, and then Soul's going to take second, so that is another medal. But we'll be flipping over to watch the teammates, as Karem is still down at the low grab fan section, and same is going on with Ryan LYK, as he goes for a different strat, a little more greedy of a strat. Can be risky, but high risk, high reward to catch up.
And I think sometimes you just want to practice those tricks, because I've seen a couple of those little kind of shortcuts, play styles, and all that, and you almost just want to kind of get those, because ultimately, if you get another like slime climb time, but with slime scraper, you know, you may ultimately want to get those pathings correct. And as competitive games and competitive tournaments keep going on and everything, you're going to want to literally get those speed runs down perfectly so you can clutch up those goals, especially in kudos-based tournaments where you see a clean run by Ryan just with the flipper. He just literally goes instantly to the finish line.
Yeah, that was really good. With that, everyone should be, that was, I think, was a bronze, so it depends on what Karem got, because if Karem got another silver for how soon Karem qualified, that could be a whole nother two medals again, but at least one medal is going towards Joshin right now. So this is going to be really close. Dynasty is going to have to really make up some plays here going into this final, maybe even a team game or a button bashers coming up with 12 qual.
I would not be surprised to see a button basher at all. Button basher has been very common lately, and it is it's a very good mode when you win. It's a very horrible mode to play when you lose. And we actually get a tiptoe, which will be interesting to see. Again, if we see any grabs, we just see them qual. This is one where desync is probably one of the hugest factors in a game, because you literally just kind of get thrown off, and I mean, that can literally cost you a qual. So again, we'll see. I mean, yesterday in Beanstalk, we saw God Jumps literally just guess every tiptoe and literally speed run through it. And I still don't know how they did that. So we might see some of that, but we might see them playing conservative. Let's see how they play going into it, though.
All right, as we're going to go over, we're going to check out what's going on with Soul, as they need to make some plays coming out of this. They gotta check out these more consistent plays. They need to make... That's basically it. They need to be a little bit more consistent than what they've been doing, because Soul has some really good runs, but has not been able to do much else. But you see the players just skipping some tiles, just making sure they're going for the safety runs, and NPCs not noticing. The question is this going to be an open option for that Yeetus or not? But it doesn't look like it's going to be a good Yeetus, so they're actually going to have to figure it out. But what I do expect to see is, I expect to see maybe a couple grabs from Dynasty over here, because Dynasty is behind and they need to make up a couple points. And this is going to either be a 1, 2, or 3. It's got to be a 1. It's got to be a 1 based on setup. Yeah. And you see the NPC take
We might see some grabs. We see some grabs. He does get it, and they all 4 actually do qual, though. So a little bit of drama, but they all 4 do qual.
You see Karem making a really nice turnaround right there at the end, just making a quick turnaround after almost being pantsed off the edge and surviving that. That could have been really big going into that 2v1 again. That is always a big, it's a big disadvantage when you have just a 1 person versing 2. Now, we have seen situations where it has been a comeback, but it's not common and it's not easy. But instead of thin ice, we're going to get the big brother, the better variation, the hexagon, but maybe it could be low grab. But we're getting the OG, the original. Let's see how this goes, because we're going to get a lot of teamwork. But let's go to first place team. Let's check out Joshin on this. I want to hear and see what's going on with this teamwork from God Jumps.
By the bottom, we have to call one guy out.
All right, and what are you seeing in this matchup right now, as we see a lot of grabbing going on?
Soul just grabs Joshin down. Joshin tries to grab him back, but falls. But you know, what's crazy is there is less enough of people. Maybe someone on a team could get high ground, so we do got to kind of keep an eye out in some ways if someone can keep high ground. You see Soul falling, I believe, several layers, and you see Soul's teammate Ryan just kind of below, just hopping it out, knowing that Josh and his teammate Karim are above him, and they do have to fall. And ultimately, they're going to be around the same tile, but I believe Soul's on purple as well behind Jashin. But Jashin, again, is just trying to jump it out, going to take these last few hexes, but ultimately going to jump down to yellow. This is going to be a really close game coming down to the end. They're already all on the second level. I think a lot of these NPCs are just running it out instead of, like, doing those plays. It's very interesting, and this is a very interesting map. There's cut in half. Yeah, yep. Jashin's gonna go to Soul, as you can hear, and oh, he might have nope. And ultimately, I think they're both are dead though.
I killed Soul.
Yeah, they're both down. There's so crazy mini hero out too.
Teammate might be able to clutch up right here.
Yeah, Karim's got to make the play here. It's up him and that bullet.
Bro,
the bullet's going to be
guns,
dead, so Karim
bro.
did pull that. That's going to be
game.
a second win
Get out
right
of the
there.
game,
and you
bro.
see them super excited, going for that win. But we'll bring it right back to the analyst desk and give a little bit of a rundown of what happened there. So, Reserve, I'm going to take a little bit of this as we wait for the scores to come up. I love Hexagon. This is a map that I can keep up with. This is my strategy game. But you saw at the first point there, Ryan fell a little far down and was going to have to make up some plays. So they had to make those slow jumps to wait for the teams to come down. And they kept staying at an even pace. And you even heard them say to Karim, you need to stay with Ryan. You need to get over on Ryan. Someone needs to be on each player. You cannot leave your opponents free to do whatever they want. Otherwise, they may just come away with a small island, and all of a sudden that small island can turn into the next layer, another smaller island, and slowly stack up time here and there.
Exactly. You know, it all adds up, but also, you know, at the end, just Jashin being like, okay, I'm gonna go with Soul. You know, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna be able to win this going where I go and everything, but ultimately realizing his teammate Karim was on the other side with a lot of real estate and only with NPCs. Or a couple of NPCs. So he ultimately said, hey, I'm going to cut this out and guarantee that we get the last teammate from Dynasty out of here so that we can at least guarantee that they don't get a crazy lead on us and that we can at least maintain our Kudo lead. And I mean, going into it seems like they've been maintaining a Kudo lead consistently throughout this game, including this episode. But we'll see those officially when the scores come in. But ultimately, it'll be all good.
Yeah, and as we're getting those scores updated on the screen, it looks like God Jumps pulling away with, it looks like 3,900 to Dynasty's 2,920. This is a huge, almost 1,000-point lead. This is a 980-point lead. We are talking a crown and a ton of medals. And going into match 4, all I can see is Dynasty's gonna have to get aggressive. They're gonna have to throw hands. They need the crown, but they also need first places. They need these medal advantages. And Soul in this last set, honestly, Soul wasn't doing well. He kept holding these first place scenarios and then just fell apart and had to fight back. But again, Soul just needs to take a breath, get a breather, reset. Soul can do this. We saw it in round 1. Soul was pulling golds, and we keep seeing Soul in first place, race after race after race, and then a small error comes up near the end. It might just be the pressure, it might be the nerves, but sometimes you have to shake those off. You can't let them get to you.
Exactly. And again, with this huge lead that God Jumps has kind of built up, it's definitely not insurmountable by any means. But really, ultimately, you're going to have to win some gold medals. You're going to have to make sure you finish those, hold those slight leads on those race maps where everyone's going to qual and there's pretty much never an issue. But then you're also going to have where you really need, if you can, like on that tiptoe would have been great, like for Dynasty, if God Jumps would have been eliminated on that, you know, be able to maybe have a survival map where you got to start throwing arms, or on snowball survival, you got to run out the ice. You got to really just go through it and just be aggressive with it. So you really will probably start to see a lot more aggression from Dynasty, but God Jumps knows how to deal with that. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it and see if they maybe combat it with their own offensive, because sometimes the best offense or the best defense is offense.
Yeah, and we're going to be going into a Night Fever, which is an opportunity to get some cheeky kills if you are fast enough to get to the end. One of my favorite strats that I have used here in the past when I'm doing more competitive stuff is I will attempt to run all the way, get that last checkpoint, and then turn around. But Soul's going to probably go for the gold in this situation, but there's a chance you could have gone for the turnaround, grab your opponent, and then that way if you and your opponent die, you spawn and manipulate your spawn to spawn forward, and your opponent spawns behind the bonkuses, so you have the better spawn and can just take advantage of that distance.
And also maybe be able to get them to where they only get a bronze medal. But you see Jashin still in the top 10, so ultimately that should be a silver medal, unless it was just a crazy small lobby, which I don't believe it was. But you know, still got that silver medal, but Soul's probably feeling good, you know, just being able to get that gold, especially after just having a few mistakes on these race maps early where he had a chance to get that gold and ultimately just made some mistakes. So he's got to be feeling a little bit good about that, just being able to pull that gold, being able to pull a little bit of distance, you know, pull closer slowly. But I think still with the medal lead, you know, with enough as it is, they're still going to have to make plays down the road and probably get an elimination off of God jumps early would be their best chance to really just kind of pull a lead. Maybe see them losing a button bashers. I mean, doubtful, but that would be the ideal scenario for them.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like these medals are very important, but I think like the only way to catch up, including like they can obviously get 2 crowns. That's always an option. They definitely need at least 1 crown in this round or the next one, and God Jumps cannot get another. If God Jumps pulls a crown, they are putting Dynasty in a situation where they're going to have to double crown, and double crown is way too much RNG because first off, you got to hit a map that double crowns, and what's even worse is the easiest one to do it, Jump Showdown, is currently off the list of available games, so double crowns is really hard because you're either going to have to do it on a roll off, and you're not going to see a roll off because we got roll on now, so we're already going to see a hexagon or a thin ice final unless it's going to be a royal fumble
or a fall mountain even, which I would kind of just love to see just for the entertainment. It's always an interesting final to watch, but it's a quick final, you know, but as a competitor, I mean, at the end of the day, I'll take a win no matter what it is. So I'm like, I don't really care what final is unless I win. But I myself have my favorite finals. For competitive games, I'm glad Jump is disabled because it just seems like I just cannot get my grab downs when it comes to like competitive players. And it's just ones that I'm confident on if I can time it out. And if the NPCs aren't grabbing and I'm not having to deal with any of that, I'm very confident myself that I can time it out and do well. But it just ultimately will come down to, you know, just the final. And yeah, I guess the thin ice is possible to time out if you get a really small final as well, you know, if you get like a 4-person thin ice. But again, you will still have the God Jumps probably running it out, just making sure if they get anybody in that final, just running it out, make sure they can't double crown worst case.
Yeah, and Soul getting a bit of an issue, getting a little bit of a desync, causing a little bit of a fall behind, and that's going to be a bronze medal, maybe even a pink. That looks like a potential pink. We had 42, so 42 people coming in, and you're 22nd. That should be a pink medal, and that's going to be a big loss of kudos right there. Even with the bronze on Josh, and you still lost your medal that you just got, and if I'm not mistaken, Karem was out in front and may have even pulled that gold. So we're looking at a point where Dynasty may have to look towards crowns only or kills. We are getting close to that number, but I definitely see that they have to get this crown. There's no choice at this point.
Yeah, they absolutely have to at least get 1 more crown, period. The best thing to do would be to get a kill off or happen to have God Jumps not qual, but you don't see that very often. I mean, when we played them, we kept it close, but they literally they qualled on everything. They might have missed like 1 qual late, but so you just got to play that close to the chest, and you just got to do what you can. Block party, again, coming up, as we see, you know, is typically an easy one. Something can happen that's crazy here, but just with the way the game mechanics are right now, you don't see a lot of people dying. So there's probably not going to be opportunity to grief a God Jumps member off, but you never know.
Yeah, there's always a chance for a cheeky grab, and then you just get like a little wedged somewhere. Could always pull you back a little bit, and if that happens 2 or 3 times in a row, it can really turn you around. And also the potential desync that can happen in the hard variant at the ending where you're going to have to run left and right. But we're going to switch over and actually take a quick look at what's going on God Jump screen with Josh and 2K and see how they're going to play this. You see Joshin actually doing a lot of jumps in place because those jumps are going to help avoid the chance to be permanently grabbed and maybe may be held in place to potentially get stuck or wedged in one of these games, because sometimes that does happen. I'm sure anyone who's played this game has had a moment where they just get wedged under like one of the 2x4s, or they get wedged under one of these platforms, and then all of a sudden they just get pulled back way further than they ever expected was going to happen.
That definitely happens too, but you also have towards the end, typically with like 15-30 seconds left, where you have like the bar underneath that you have to jump over, but it's very thin. So if you have a big lobby like, or a big like round like this where there's a lot of people, sometimes you have to be really careful because you can get desynced to the side and again thrown off, and that can be a really issue. You see an NPC kind of make a grab on I believe that's an NPC on Jashkin, but Jashkin's able to again make those jumps and survive.
That's also something big to note about. They are all playing on their own personal servers where they practice, where they do a lot of their games at. So a lot of these NPCs, you're probably going to see grab. This is something interesting that you don't always see, is players who are more well-known tend to have issues. And we are going to see the hard variant, but we see Karem immediately going to safety. And the bad part is we do see Josh in the back trying to play it safe, but you could fall into the desync town if you are too far in the back and all these NPCs start getting pushed back. You see the NPCs coming back little by little. And that little bit of a desync exactly. The qualify by Joshin.
And somehow he is able to make the perfect like dive and maybe just jump at the exact right moment and dive at the exact right moment to still be able to pull out that qualifier. But being in the back like that on that hard variant is a very scary place to be. I mean, I know I'm always trying to be as front as possible without being too far up to where I get desync forward. But playing back is so risky, but wow, I can't believe it. I mean, he got knocked off, and it even showed the slime effect, but it did show that he qualified. So lucky break for God Jumps in that case, but wow, that was really close.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I've never seen anything like that. I was even telling you, like, in the back, if you're sitting in the back, that's a bad place to be because the NPCs are going to slowly get backed up. They're going to slowly get desynced backwards, and you're going to have to deal with it eventually. But that last jump and qual is very important. And honestly, seeing a big shots like this and the easy variant just fruits even on top of that, so it's even easier to deal with all the randomness being shot at you. This is going to be good for Joshin because Joshin needs to calm down. If Joshin had to go into a final after that finish, there would have been a lot of adrenaline running, and it really could have changed your gameplay and the way you're thinking about the game. So they're going to take a reset right here, and you see Joshin just chilling out, just trying to relax, but Karem is getting grabbed by two people right now, goes back to his teammate and says, I'm cool over here, guys. We'll stay over here.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, again, especially with the fruit, it just makes it a lot easier. But it makes griefing a lot harder for Dynasty, who might wanted to have griefed right there, but really just didn't have a great opportunity, you know, to do it with the fruit. No like axe. There isn't also the hardest variant I think in this is where it's like 5 cannons, because that actually makes it kind of rough because it kind of does go center and it's just a lot more objects or fruit depending on the variant. But again, it probably is the easiest variant you have. I mean, you see literally no one has died yet, and that includes NPCs, where literally you see 0 out of 6 eliminated. So it very well could time out right here, literally with no eliminations, which I've only seen like twice, and I'm pretty sure it is with this exact variant. But so I mean, God Jumps, Jashin, and Karem are very happy about this, just being able to walk through with those extra medals, keeping those same medal count, and not being able to survive and just keep going. That's huge for them.
Yeah, because every time we walk into a survival game, a team game, that's always going to benefit the team that's in first place. And with God Jumps, with the amount of lead they have, every time they see a team game, every time they see a survival, it's exactly what you want. And like you said, everyone survived in that variant, and you were seeing people get smacked by the fruits left and right, and it doesn't do anything. It's not like being hit by one of the nuts. It's not like being hit by a star, and then all of a sudden you get hit from the front and you just get flung like no one's business off the back of the treadmill. But we are going to get into a wall, guys, and we're going to see some fancy grabs. But I do want to go and check this out from Soul's perspective, because Soul and Dynasty really need to make some grabs right here. So tell me what you're seeing from Soul's perspective. It does look like he's racing it, but if he goes for any grabs or cheeky plays, I want you to run me through what's going through Soul's mind right now. If you were in Soul's position, what would you be thinking?
I mean, the first thing is just getting far enough ahead, making sure that you don't get kind of in that back pattern where you're just getting a bunch of NPCs and a bunch of players where you're getting decent more of a thing. And you do see Soul kind of grabbing and making these plays. Soul does go for that jump dive grab and it's not able to get it, where in Season 4 where they made that a lot harder, pushes it forward for Ryan a little bit, does get Ryan ahead a bit. So Ryan might be able to get farther ahead and either determine if he wants to go or go through. It does look like Ryan was actually grabbed down potentially by Karim, and Karim's just kind of standing up there. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it, but Karim's kind of built a lead, and they're all sitting there. I believe it's not close enough together, but there's 2 of them together on the thing from different teams. You have Soul's teammate Ryan, and you have and
Karim being knocked off.
Just take first.
And Karim got knocked off. Oh, but Soul is not able to get the jump dive grab, but it looks like Ryan did take that first place, though. Go ahead and secure that gold medal. But Soul's got to be careful here, just making sure he quals and gets grabbed by Karim, though. A little cheeky grab by Karim. But Soul's got to, with these ramps, it is very tricky, especially, like I said, when you get further back with NPCs, you see these ramps be an issue with these things. And you just got to be really careful. And Soul's just gonna go make sure he qualifies, especially now that Karim is qualified. And I believe Jashin has qualified already.
Yeah, and with 17, that means the top 3 got a silver. So that's actually really bad because you still are going to even out on kudos right there, because you saw Joshin and Karim take number 2 and 3, which means they got those 2 silver positions, and that's going to leave it for first place doesn't matter anymore, just because you got the bronze and gold to compare up to the 2 silvers. So that's God Jumps there holding that lead to it. And let's jump back and check everyone out as we're going into a hexagon, and we'll see what we're going to do in this hexagon, because there's going to be so much on both ends that we do not want to miss any of the play going on right now. We'll see who gets aggressive.
God, man.
And it's the low grab variation. So this is going to take a while. And honestly, we've said it before, Joshin has been practicing this mode. I'm going to Joshin right now. We're going to check this out because he said he's been mastering it. He says he knows the tactics. He says he knows how to play low grab hex, and I want to see how to play it.
This works, right?
Absolutely, and when it comes to Jashin, yeah, he's been practicing it, and I was going to say, ooh, hexagon, man. The strat here, again, and it's still going to be the same kind of strat, so you may not see the absolute god plays by Jashin in some sense. At the end of the day, the thing they got to make sure is that Dynasty does not win, because if Dynasty does not get a win, regardless if Jashin and Karim do not win, they at least maintain that crown lead, and with the way they've been going with the medals, that's all they really need to do is just make sure that Dynasty does not get that win. You see Jashin fall a little bit, try to make that last second dive, but just falls, just missed times what the NPC is doing as the NPC was just running it out. It looks like Jashin, again, is just opting to kind of run it out and ultimately create more difficulty for people dropping down, because he believes in his jumps. And you might see later on where you see he actually knows the jump dive strat tactic, and he does it well here. So you might be able to see
this
that.
Is a lot of room for Soul, by the way. On low grab, all you're going to see probably from this point is you're going to probably see Ryan go down, probably run out as much as he can, just trying to kill it, because Soul's just chilling, just trying to find the best points, just chilling, and it's going to fall down because the low grab, you couldn't run out enough, but Soul still has a couple spots, almost dives a little too early, because that could have been a situation where you could have actually ragdolled, and being ragdolled that low usually can get a kill. And if you don't play this right, you can lose out on your spaces. Like that, you lost your jump. Soul's going to fall. So this is up to Joshin to win. With Crazy Mini Hero out, we still have everyone else
and it
going.
Looks like Ryan is dead too.
So
it's
going to come down to the dive.
Does not have it.
And with the win going to Joshin 2K, this is going to be a big change of events. We'll talk about those events as soon as we go back to the analyst desk, but that was a big win for God Jumps, and I'm going to send it over so we can talk a little bit more about what we just saw, and once we get those scores, we'll get them right to you.
I got 1 bronze.
So, Reserve, we said it at the start. You've been saying it all game. I said it right there. Joshin's been practicing low grab hex, and Joshin won the low grab hex, but this is going to really change the landscape of these kudos, which is going to put Dynasty at a big disadvantage. And I'm going to keep my eyes peeled on Dynasty, because it doesn't matter race. It doesn't matter if it's a survival. It's not going to be a team game. That's against the rules. But everything else, we're going to see grabs left and right. Dynasty is going to have to get a kill. And then on top of that, they're going to need a roll off. That is the only situation in which they have the best chance to win. They could hit the double crown in the fall mountain, but I do not expect to see anything like that happen. Or if they get a random double elimination somehow in round 1 and just decide to go for double pink medals chain grab and try and take the last 2 positions. That is a much more risky strategy, but it is something that could potentially come up here.
I mean, it'll depend on what they want to do, but you also forget that depending on how small the final is, if you get a really small thin ice final and you can maybe eliminate one of them early, that they could actually potentially get a double crown on that in that case, and that could create, for opportunities. But you do see thin ice typically with the big final, so that doesn't come up often, but you never know. I've timed out a couple of thin ices, not necessarily in competitive scene, but I've timed them out, with a good amount of people just getting those elims. If you're good enough to eliminate those NPCs and maybe again have one down where you can eliminate God jumps early in that final and maybe be able to clutch that up. But ultimately, you're going to have to really see that. You're going to have to see that double crown, and you're going to have to see probably an early elimination or something crazy kind of happen to really be able to win this.
Okay, and we just got confirmation that actually at this point, Dynasty doesn't even is going to end up backing out. They don't want to play the last one. The Kudo difference is statistically not in their favor to even come back if they played it almost flawlessly. So we're going to actually call it there, and that final win by God Jumps, by Josh and 2K right there, is going to make the win happen in 4 games. And then your round 4, where your winners are going to be God Jumps over Dynasty, and that makes God Jumps the only team to beat Dynasty in the first round, where we still have, what was that? It was Big Bad Beans are the only teams to take out Dynasty in the second round. So Dynasty is going to have to reset with 2 losses coming so soon after such a strong start.
Yeah, I mean, they were looking unstoppable with their undefeated records, and then coming out with 2 losses. I mean, they do got to keep in mind, though, Dynasty, maybe a loss here and maybe not a great game for them. But ultimately, I mean, they have 1 loss that's this, and then they have 1 other loss. I mean, they've done really well throughout, and they played really well. I know in particular that when I played Dynasty, I mean, they kicked our butts. I mean, honestly, they absolutely just demolished us, and they were the better team. And we had a bad day that day, but they were absolutely amazing. And they got to keep in mind, ultimately they just got to make it to the playoffs, and maybe that might cost them to lose a number 1 seed, but ultimately you really just got to make it to the playoffs and just hope something happens, because again, this game, just depending on the maps and everything, it could go well for you. It may not go well for you, but as you guys saw, I mean, this is a very highly competitive game, even though the score may look like it's a blowout. I mean, the reality is that these were very close maps, very close races, very close games the entire time. In Dynasty, I mean, they won that first crown, so they showed that they can still win a crown too. This is nothing. I mean, this may be a blowout just because a lot of the crowns in the race maps, but ultimately they are both extremely high-skilled teams, and they have the ability to obviously make a comeback throughout the season.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. And honestly, with that big win by God Jumps over Dynasty, that's going to put God Jumps in that first place driver position. They are now the first place team in this KOZ league after 3 weeks with only 2 left. That is a very strong position to have. And guys, honestly, I can't wait to see what we're going to see next week once we get the game of the week all set up. And I will definitely see you next week, maybe with someone else, maybe with Reserved again. All depends if he enjoyed it or not. But I'll send my adieux. But do you have anything last to say, Reserved?
I just want to say congratulations to God Jumps, because they also won Beanstalk yesterday as a squad, and then this duo today, they absolutely just dominated it and absolutely just did what they needed to do to win. Jackson just proving again on that low graph thin ice that he has been practicing, just proving that there are strats that can be implemented to be able to win. So while a lot of these players are complaining and they're not loving it and they're not playing it, that ultimately they're still going through, and he's still playing, and he's like, I'm gonna be better than everyone. Everyone, you're done. Like, I'm gonna be better than everyone. And when this final comes up, it's game over. And he proved that today.
All right, and they heard it right there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in Week 3 Game of the Week for the KOZ League, and I can't wait to see you next week for Week 4 Game of the Week.